2025 is the year superhero movies are back, at least according to the internet. And they make a good case, you know? Thunderbolts asterisks, good. Fantastic Four First Steps, also good. Superman, like, great. I thought it was genuinely, I loved Superman. It was the movie of the year for me so far. I'm not even exaggerating. That was like genuinely the best movie I've seen all year. But especially if we take Fantastic Four and Superman, are we all noticing that they're cutting out the origin stories from the movies now? And, you know, I kind of get it. Fantastic Four, for example, we have done this origin story twice before now. You know, we had the original Fantastic Four movie from 2005. They went up into space, got hit by that explosion. I think at least that's what happened. And then they come out with superpowers. And then they did it again, like 10 years later, with Fantastic Four 2015. And with Superman, we've done the whole Krypton is dying, we need to get this boy on a, like, pod to Earth so he can be Superman over there about 4 times. I've lost count at this stage. And in a way, I think part of what makes the newer movies so successful and so basically universally loved right now, I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone there, but I feel like these are being received well, is because they are just kind of cutting out the origin story. I'm not going to spoil the movies if you haven't seen the new Fantastic Four or the new Superman, but they kind of just go straight in. We don't need to waste our time doing this origin story that we've done multiple times before, and it's straight to the point. New villain, let's get on with it. In the case of Fantastic Four, the movie starts 4 years after they've got their powers. Do you get it? 4. And in that universe, they're already kind of established as the world's heroes. You know, they're basically the Avengers of their own universe. I don't know if it's because they think people are getting tired of origin stories, but in a way, I kind of prefer it. I kind of watched this Fantastic Four movie, and I thought it's like they just redid The Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007. If you can wrap your head around the fact that all of the cast look different, it basically serves as a sequel to the original Fantastic Four. I don't know if that's like I guess like Doctor Doom isn't as present in it. And this Fantastic Four movie is definitely the first Fantastic Four movie where I really felt like they were a family. It helped with the whole dynamic that they're kind of bringing a child into the world as part of this movie, and then they're protecting this child and looking after this child in the movie. And I love that because I don't feel like that would have been possible to achieve had they felt like they needed to do the origin story again. It would have felt like they almost needed to convince us that these people are a family and they love each other, rather than just kind of going in, we're going to show you they're a family. It's actually, to my knowledge, I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the shortest MCU movies I can remember. And I think maybe that time was made up from the fact it could have been 2 hours, 15 minutes long if they stuck a 30-minute origin story for the Fantastic Four at the start. Maybe cutting out some of those scenes where they were like just showing us their day-to-day life and how they were getting on with each other and how they were riffing off each other when they were just at home together alone. That might have been seen as unnecessary scenes, but definitely weren't. And it's the same with Superman. It basically eerily similar, except Superman's theme is all to do with like it's free somethings later, you know, like 3 centuries ago the metahumans appeared. 3 decades ago Superman arrived on Earth. 3 years ago I can't remember what happened 3 years ago. So again, we're very much in this universe where superheroes have been established, and it's actually one of my favorite things about the new Superman is how, like, lived in the universe already feels, despite the fact this is essentially the first movie in the DC cinematic universe, or I mean, it's just called the DC universe. I don't think they're calling it the DCCU. Like, the novelty of superheroes being there in the way in the first Marvel movies there was, where, like, Iron Man showed up, or, like, the Avengers, and there were alien attacks on the city, and the people were, like, still, like, trying to process all of that information, which is not a bad thing by any means. That just wasn't there in this. They were all very used to what is happening. It's a good and different way to start up a cinematic universe that hasn't been done with Marvel. And I think it's great because there are so many interesting stories to tell in superhero universes, and if you're constantly having to reboot and redo them like they are always having to do, they don't need to just do the origin story every single time. This is technically a good thing. It just makes for an interesting conversation when new characters get introduced and they still skip over the origin story. Like, it's not just like a weird coincidence that these 2 movies that came out this year in the summer have happened to skip out the origin stories. If you look through the MCU and DC's latest movies, there's new characters that have been introduced that they still skip over the origin stories for. Often when they introduce a new character, their way of going about doing it is to stick the character into a big crossover movie, like Black Panther and Spiderman both appearing in Captain America Civil War. And that's their way of introducing the character. And then when it comes to their own movie, they kind of just gloss over the whole origin story. Like Spider-Man in Homecoming just kind of goes, oh yeah, I got bitten by a spider. to Ned. Like that, then that's the whole thing. And again, I get it with Spider-Man because it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we've done his origin story before. We've covered this, you know. They don't want to overdo the story. No one really needs to see like the 30-minute opening to the movie where like happens to stumble upon this radioactive Spider-Man. He's like, oh, this is how my powers work. I can climb walls, can make webs and swing through the city. And that's why I think Spider-Man Homecoming is actually a really effective Spider-Man movie. It's just kind of straight into the MCU universe, showing the lives of regular people. And yeah, we just have this new kid on the block that's going to be the next big thing. And I feel like that's kind of the blueprint that Fantastic Four and Superman have followed. So to really go back to when was the last origin story the MCU did, we have to go all the way back to 2021. And you kind of think like, okay, the last original movie with new characters was The Eternals. And it wasn't an origin story. It was very similar to Fantastic Four, which I gave the benefit of the doubt to the Fantastic Four because like they've done this origin story twice before. With the Eternals, this is their first ever movie. There are no Eternals movies that came out before this. Most people were probably like me and had no idea who these characters were before this movie was announced. And they very much just do a very quick introduction scene of like, this is what happened, and here they are now, just hanging out on Earth in the present day. Meaning to actually go back to the last MCU origin stories, really are going back to Shang-Chi, which was an actual origin story, but that was 4 years ago. But it's also not just the MCU. Superman obviously skipped over the origin story. If we go to their movies before that, we have Blue Beetle. Okay, Blue Beetle might be an origin story, but I haven't seen it, and I didn't really know this existed. So, you know, sue me. It's apparently a fine movie, according to most people who've seen it. I just haven't. But to return to actual DC movies that people have seen, The Flash, I think that was the first Flash movie ever? I'm actually not sure. I know he has the TV show, I've watched that, but has there been a Flash movie before? Either way, regardless, it's definitely the first solo Flash movie in the DCEU, and they don't do the origin story. He was already introduced in the Justice League movies, so therefore they just kind of go straight in with, yep, this is the character, you remember him, you love him, here he is, and he's gonna try and erase the entire timeline because our movies aren't performing well. That was a weird movie. If we then go to the latest Batman with Robert Pattinson, again, I understand that they have done the Batman origin story probably the most out of all of them. Didn't they do the Batman origin in Joker as well? Like, I'm pretty sure they did. There's been a lot of Batman origins. And in the Batman's case, I think this is actually a really good thing because they're telling an interesting story without just having to rehash the whole, the pearls went on the floor as they came out of the opera and he has to, like, get vengeance for his parents. He already wants vengeance for his parents. We know that. We know what Batman's origin is. Most people going into the movie know that. I'm pretty sure everyone going into the movie knows that. So therefore, we can just go straight in. Batman's out there trying to take it out on crime doers. But again, going further back into DC's repertoire, Birds of Prey. Harley Quinn has already been introduced. It takes place like 4 years after the Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad, the bad one. And you have to go back to stuff like the Joker and Shazam and Aquaman to get their origin stories. It's like 6 years ago, basically, since they did their last origin story. Unless you're including Blue Beetle, which I guess a lot of people probably will, but again, I haven't seen that. But my big question about this kind of death of origin stories is, what does it mean for the future of superhero movies? Because there is going to be a long future of superhero movies. While there's obviously going to be more conversations about superhero fatigue, this surge of success this summer shows that people aren't entirely bored of them, and therefore both Marvel and DC I expect to up the ante. And, you know, if you look at their upcoming rosters, the ante is getting upped. There's more Avengers movies coming. DC are basically just starting their universe. Not basically, no, they literally are just starting their universe. And the question becomes like, with Supergirl, that's the next DCU movie. I'm pretty sure it's coming out next year with Millie Alcock as Supergirl. And we know she exists in this Superman universe. Like, her dog is literally in the Superman movie as, like, one of the core characters. And you're kind of like, are they going to do the Supergirl origin story? Because, you know, there hasn't been a Supergirl movie for over 40 years now. And I haven't seen the original one. I don't know what Supergirl's origin story is. But are they just going to skip over it because they've already established her as existing in this universe and just kind of go straight in with, yep, this is Supergirl, this is what she does? Or are they going to go, like, back in time to do her origin story and it's going to take place before Superman chronologically? Or, you know, these are the kind of questions I'm wondering. And apparently it's been announced, or at least there's rumors, I think it's been announced, don't quote me on it, that Wonder Woman is returning to the DC universe and they're going to reboot her character. And it's kind of like, so that was an origin story DC did, like, what, 10 years ago? Are they going to redo that one as well? Or are they just going to go straight in with, yep, here's Wonder Woman, she's been here this whole time too, and they're just going to go, because, you know, we've seen the Wonder Woman origin story. Like, how are they going to make these decisions? It's going to be based on if their movies already exist, or if they feel like they have an interesting story to tell, or are they just going to skip over them entirely? In the case of the MCU, like, we have big characters coming into the MCU in the near future. The X-Men are planned to be introduced in the near future, I believe. And there's got to be some weird little explanation on why the people in the MCU are going to have a problem with mutants, people who are born with superpowers, versus not having a problem with people who obtain or get given superpowers at some point in their life. They don't really have too many problems with, like, the Hulk and Captain America and Spider-Man, but say if they're going to have real problems with the mutants, they're going to surely have to do some sort of origin story for them and how that started. Or is it, again, just going to be like a really quick, like, oh yeah, mutants exist now, people do not like it. I want a Miles Morales Spider-Man in the MCU more than I can explain. And when they do that, I assume he's probably just going to show up in a Spider-Man movie and it's going to be like, there's another Spider-Man? This guy got bitten by a radioactive spider too. And that's kind of going to be how they go about doing it, I imagine. Also, just to get my honorary Spider-Verse mention in for every video, I love the way they deal with origin stories. They make it the whole thing. It's like, this is a canon event. This has to happen to every hero. They have to go through these things, and therefore, like, the origin story kind of becoming, like, the main plot is, like, he's trying to prevent his origin story from having to happen. It's so good. And is that going to be, like, the last time we really see a proper origin story like that, at least in this modern era of superhero films? Like, I genuinely want to know, have we seen the end of origin stories as we know it? Especially with the success of Fantastic Four and Superman, where they skipped over it. Are they just going to go on from there and go, well, this is working, let's just kind of avoid that? And in a good way, it means we're going to get these new, fresh superhero stories that maybe we haven't seen before because they don't feel the need to insert an origin story in the first installment every time. But it's also maybe a bad thing, because aren't origin stories, in a way, some of the most iconic bits of superhero fiction? And especially when we're introducing new characters where we haven't seen these origin stories, at least in recent times, with characters like Supergirl, maybe with Blade as well, who hasn't had an origin story in like 30 years when it comes out. So a lot of people maybe watching the MCU and consuming these superhero movies for the first time now might not have seen the original Blade movie. So therefore, will they know the Blade origin story? Will they get all of it? And therefore, are they going to do it again? Or are they just going to skip over it and just go straight in with, yep, this is Blade? If they're going to skip over the origin stories, does that make less room for new, more exciting characters to come in? Anyway, I don't want to get too doom and gloom about it. I just wanted to make a video about how superhero movies are back, but origin stories might also be dead. And that might be a good thing. It might also be a bad thing. Who knows? I guess time will tell. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Blue Seamus. I really want to do more stuff like just talking about like superhero movies, and because I'm really interested in this. And as I said, Superman, probably my favorite movie this year so far. I really, really loved it. So I love just like talking about this stuff, and it's a really fun video to make. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Blue Seamus. And yeah, if you want to see more stuff like this, just be nice and let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see ya.